The New York New Beginning. Clara Thompson had always been the quiet type, the kind of woman who blended into the background of bustling Brooklyn streets like a faded page in an old book. At 69, she lived in a modest brownstone apartment in Bedford-Stuyvesant, surrounded by shelves of dusty novels and memoirs that whispered stories of lives more adventurous than her own. Her days were filled with the soft rhythm of retirement, morning coffee with the newspaper, afternoon walks in Prospect Park, and evenings spent knitting scarves for grandchildren who rarely visited. But beneath that calm exterior lay a history rich with unspoken struggles, a black woman who had navigated the turbulent 1960s in New York. Working as a librarian while raising a daughter amidst civil rights marches and urban upheaval. Clara's daughter, Vanessa, was her world. Or at least, that's what Clara told herself. Vanessa, now 42, lived in a trendy loft in Williamsburg with her husband, Jamal, and their 2 kids, Maya and Elijah. Vanessa worked as a graphic designer, but her freelance gigs were sporadic, and Jamal's job as a barista didn't cover the Brooklyn rent hikes. For years, Clara had been their safety net, wiring money for emergencies that seemed to multiply like weeds in a garden. It started small, a few hundred for Maya's ballet classes, then 1,000 for Elijah's asthma treatments. But over time, the requests grew: $5,000 for a business investment in Vanessa's side hustle, $3,000 for a new laptop, $7,000 to cover back rent after Jamal lost a gig during the pandemic. Clara never said no. How could she? She remembered her own hardships growing up in Harlem during the 1960s, when her father worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table, and her mother scrubbed floors in white folks' homes. Clara had clawed her way through library school at NYU on scholarships and sheer grit, becoming one of the first black librarians in the Brooklyn public library system. She wanted better for Vanessa, who had grown up with books and dreams but somehow always teetered on the edge of stability. "Family sticks together," Clara would murmur as she transferred funds from her modest pension and savings. Each wire felt like a thread binding them closer. Even if the visits grew rarer and the phone calls shorter. One crisp autumn morning in October 2025, Clara's phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa: "Mom, emergency, car broke down again. Need $4,000 for repairs. Promise we'll pay back next month when my big client pays up. Love you." Clara sighed, staring at the screen. It was always an emergency. She logged into her bank app, her fingers hovering over the transfer button. The account balance stared back, $28,000 left from her life savings, whittled down over a decade of loans that totaled over $50,000, never repaid, never mentioned again. But she hit send anyway, watching the numbers drop like leaves from a tree. That evening, as Clara scrolled through Instagram, a habit she'd picked up to see glimpses of her grandchildren, she froze. Vanessa had posted a reel: snowy peaks, laughter echoing against the mountains, Maya and Elijah building a snowman in fluffy jackets. The caption: Aspen vibes. Family reset in the Rockies, pure magic. #blessed #family first. The video showed Vanessa sipping hot cocoa by a roaring fire in a luxurious cabin, Jamal toasting marshmallows, and the kids skiing down pristine slopes. Hashtags flashed, #luxury getaway, #winter wonderland. Clara's heart sank. Aspen? That wasn't a cheap weekend trip. It was a high-end ski vacation, easily costing $10,000 or more with flights, lodging, and rentals. She replayed the reel, zooming in on details: designer ski gear, a gourmet dinner spread, even a spa day. Vanessa tagged as #selfcare Sunday. The dates matched, posted just days after Clara's latest transfer. No mention of a car breakdown. No invitation for grandma. Clara felt a sharp twist in her chest, like a page being torn from her favorite book. All those emergencies, all that money, she'd been funding their lifestyle, not their needs. Vanessa hadn't even bothered to hide it. The posts were public, as if Clara's existence didn't factor into their calculations. For the first time in years, Clara didn't cry or call. She set her phone down, poured herself a cup of chamomile tea, and sat in her armchair, staring at the faded photo of her younger self on the mantel, a 25-year-old Clara marching in the 1963 March on Washington, sign in hand reading "Freedom Now." Back then, she'd fought for dignity, for a voice. Where had that fire gone? Swallowed by motherhood, by the quiet erosion of giving too much. The next morning, Vanessa texted again: "Thanks for the $1, Mom. You're a lifesaver." Kids sent hugs. Clara read it 5 times, her fingers trembling. Instead of replying with her usual "anytime, dear," she typed nothing. She deleted the app notifications, blocked the automatic transfers in her bank app, and for good measure, changed her account password. It felt like slamming a door she'd left ajar for too long. Weeks passed in a haze of quiet rebellion. Vanessa's calls went unanswered at first, then Clara responded with curt texts: "Busy today." The requests stopped coming, replaced by guilt-tripping messages. "Mom, why are you ignoring us? The kids miss you." Clara ignored those too. She wandered her neighborhood, passing the Brooklyn Library branch where she'd worked for 40 years. On a whim, she stepped inside and spotted a flyer, "Senior Writers Group, share your stories, every Wednesday." Something stirred. Clara had always loved writing, journal entries from her youth, hidden in drawers. Why not? The first meeting was in a cozy room smelling of coffee and old paper. A dozen seniors, mostly women, sat in a circle. The facilitator, a vibrant 75-year-old named Rosa, encouraged them, "Write what you know. Your life is the best story." Clara hesitated but shared a snippet about her Harlem childhood, the scent of soul food wafting from kitchen windows amid the sounds of jazz and protests. The group nodded, shared their own tales. For the first time in years, Clara felt seen, not as a wallet, but as a person with a history. She started writing at home, pouring out memories, growing up in the shadow of the Apollo Theater, witnessing Malcolm X speak. The thrill of her first library job where she curated Black history sections during the Black Power movement. Words flowed like a river long dammed. She titled her memoir Pages of Protest, A Black Woman's New York Odyssey. It wasn't just about the past. It wove in her present pain, the betrayal of family, the cost of unconditional love. Meanwhile, Vanessa's life unraveled. Without Clara's subsidies, the Williamsburg loft became unaffordable. Jamal picked up extra shifts, but bills piled up. Vanessa's texts turned desperate. "Mom, we might lose the apartment. Just $2,000 to tide us over?" Clara read them with a detached calm. "Ask your friends," she finally replied, echoing the cold clarity she'd found. Vanessa called 12 times that day. Clara let it ring. In the writers' group, Clara's chapters captivated everyone. Rosa, a former editor, suggested submitting to small presses. "Your voice is powerful, Clara. It's time the world hears it." Clara polished her manuscript over months, adding layers, her marriage to a kind but struggling teacher who passed young, raising Vanessa alone, the subtle racism in her career. The betrayal became a chapter called The Price of Blood, anonymized but raw. One spring day in 2026, an email arrived. "Dear Ms. Thompson, we're impressed by your memoir. We'd like to offer a publishing deal with a $5,000 advance." It was from Harlem Heritage Press, a small Black-owned publisher specializing in untold stories. Clara stared at the screen, tears blurring the words. For once, money was coming to her, not flowing out. The book launched that fall at a Brooklyn bookstore event. Clara stood at the podium, dressed in a bold red blazer, far from her usual muted tones, reading excerpts to a packed room. Strangers nodded, some wiping eyes. In the audience sat Rosa and her group mates, cheering loudest. Vanessa wasn't there. Clara hadn't invited her. But Maya and Elijah showed up secretly, slipping in the back. After, Maya hugged her. "Grandma, I read the book. I'm sorry about Mom and Dad. We didn't know." Elijah added, "You're amazing." It was the first genuine connection in years. Free of expectations, the book gained traction. A review in the New York Times called it a poignant testament to resilience. Podcasts invited Clara. She spoke at libraries and schools, mentoring young Black writers. "Your story matters," she'd tell them. "Don't let anyone silence it." Royalties trickled in, enough to fund a small scholarship for aspiring librarians. Vanessa eventually reached out. Not for money, but with a tentative apology. "Mom, I read your book. I see now how we hurt you." They met for coffee in a neutral cafe. Vanessa admitted their overspending, the facade of success. "We lived beyond our means, using you as a crutch." Clara listened, then said, "I forgive you, but boundaries stay. No more loans." It wasn't a full reconciliation, but a start. Cordial visits, no strings. By 2027, Clara's speaking tour took her across the Northeast, Boston, Philly, D.C. At 71, she stood on stages, sharing her odyssey. In Harlem, where it all began, she felt the fire of her youth reignite. Back home, her apartment buzzed with life, writing group potlucks, grandkids sleepovers, even a budding romance with a fellow writer named Harold. Clara had lost $50,000, but gained something priceless, her voice. In the end, her story wasn't about loss, but rebirth. As she wrote in her epilogue, "At any age, you can turn the page and begin anew. New York taught me that, endless, resilient, full of second chances."